So we will see the comments and questions maybe a bit late, but entera occurred. Let's try again. We are live. Okay, we are live. Let me check on my Facebook device. Yes, we are live. Good evening, guys. Hope you are all well. This is what people to jump on if they're gonna jump on at all. Deep breath.
Des, how you been, my guy?
Sir Kudakwashe, the entrepreneur.
Leave it at. Leave
The
it.
founder and
Mr. Pinnacle himself.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good. Well, good.
Nice. Mr. Benjamin.
The mayor of Bedford.
Oh, me? Trying to get me arrested.
We see your mighty wakes that you're waking.
The mighty rakes.
How's the lockdown going, everyone?
Do you know what? The lockdown's been one of the best things that's happened in a decade, I think, or more. Honestly speaking, I feel like for me personally, I've had time to reflect on things. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you come in this country, in the United Kingdom, life is so fast paced. Like,
right.
Everything is moving. So this lockdown kind of set it where we just take a step back and breathe. So it's been amazing, man. I don't know how it's been for you.
Yeah, it's for me. Not much has changed because I've been doing uni work, so it's just been doing dissertation. But what's definitely changed my commitment at work is the current race protest situation. Because I do youth work, as you know, our work is multiplied like pretty much 200%. So yeah, how's it been going for you?
Man, you know what? I wish I could say what Denzel has said, but for me, it has been so busy. And the truth is, when this whole thing began, I said to myself, I really hope I get fellowed at work, or our company shut down, because I needed the time, because at the time when it happened, that's when we had just finished setting up the studio. So I kind of needed time to catch my breath and then catch up with stuff.
Right.
But that didn't happen. And then to make things worse, work just started piling. Like at the studio, work started coming in constantly. So I've been, to be honest, I've been working double time because, for my day job, I usually finish at 4:35. When I finish, I'm not going home. I'm going straight to the studio, and I'm usually at the studio until 10:30. And then I go home, eat, shower, bed, do the same
Busy is
thing
good, right?
tomorrow. I'm tempted to say yes, but I think too much of anything is not good at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, so let's jump into the meat of the day. I'll be waiting for people to jump on. We've got 12 people watching for now, so it's all good. Everybody, welcome to our discussion. As you know, it's titled "Young Black Men Addressing Racism and Social Injustice," and I've got two of my great brothers and friends here with me, Kudakwashe and Denzel. Just to give you a bit of context to why we're having this discussion before I ask them to introduce themselves. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of emotion and justified emotion around the current situation, and I just thought we should address it. But tonight we're not coming on as activists, and we do respect and support all activists doing their job, but we just feel that for us to overcome these challenges, it will take more than activism and protest. And we want to explore some of those big ideas on how we can move forward and rise above racism beyond the emotion, but how can we practically address the situation? Um, so yeah, that's why we're here tonight. And feel free to throw your questions, thoughts in the comment section. And but what's happening? We're streaming on three platforms on my Facebook page, Benjamin Hamandisha, and also thanks to the Southern African Times
Sir.
for their support. Great press company. Check them out.
Yes, sir.
They comment on all things corporate news, international business, politics, you name it. Go check them out, and we've got some amazing content from there. So I know some people are watching from that page. I don't know if I can see every comment from that page. If you ask a question and we don't answer it, just inbox me, Benjamin Hamandisha, and then you can check out the questions. And also we're streaming live on YouTube on Benjamin Hamandisha YouTube. So yeah, let's get on. Could I please introduce yourself? And after Benjamin, introduce yourself.
Oh, hi guys. I'm Koda for the question, Peter. 26 years of age. Is that how old I am? Yeah, okay, yeah, I am. I'd forgotten. But yeah, 26 years of age, live in Derby. I studied aircraft engineering. Yeah, and I'm happily married.
Wonderful.
Happily married. I like that. Denzel Chidziva. See, now I look really young. 23 years of age. I live in Bedford. Very, very much interested in opportunities. I see opportunities everywhere, and I just take advantage. I'm into business. I love business. Anything to do with business and numbers get me involved. But yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, as you can see, lockdown has had me looking like this, but let's keep it going.
Definitely. And just to let people know, another reason why I have these gentlemen on, especially from the perspective of young people, each of us are all involved in some sort of youth work. So I myself, I'm involved in youth leadership at my local church, but I also work with a charity called Active Horizon, and we do a lot of youth work around that. And I started my own youth organization. Well, not, I don't own it. I work with a team of people. We started a youth organization called EmergeNow, and as you can see, that's the logo up on top there. And our vision and goal is to empower and raise the now and next generation of young leaders. For a long time, it was always the youth, they're the leaders of tomorrow. Yeah, the change of tomorrow, but now we're the leaders of today. So yeah, that's what we do. And Kuda, he is a youth leader at his local church, and he also does youth work around, especially around music and training through Pinnacle Sound Studios. So if you're
Yes,
young people, you want to learn instruments and music and production and
yes, sir.
in Pinnacle Sound Studios. And
Yeah.
Denzel, he does a lot of music as well. He does everything from politics, streaming, conversations with local politicians. And what's your youth group called, Denzel? The one that you have
New generation leaders. That's what it's called. Based in Bedford. Get to know it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anyway, so people are jumping on. Let's get straight into the meat of today. There is no strict structure or flow to this conversation. We're just gonna freestyle. So I guess let's get into the first question. Kuda, first to you, and then Denzel. How are you feeling about the current situation with the protests and the riots and the racism and the George Floyd thing? In just a few minutes, just your immediate feelings on what's going on.
I will try and compress it because I think out of the three of us, I'm more passionate about it more. But um I don't feel anything. If I'm to speak the truth without trying to sugarcoat anything. What's happened with the George Floyd and the protesting and everything else that's happening around the racial situation is something I've had to deal with internally way before all of this happened. Um, so when this happened, when the protests started, when the Black Lives Matter movement regained momentum, I had already dealt with it. I had already internalized it within myself. So I think for me, it was more like I'm glad everybody else as caught onto it, and everybody else is now thinking, and their brains are a bit more open. Because I always say, until you personally deal with racism in your own personal life, you will never understand it. It will just be a thing that's spoken about and say, oh yeah, there is racism. But until you personally as an individual deal with it, you'd never understand the depth.
Yeah. Wonderful. Just before we get into Denzel, someone said they couldn't hear me as I was sounding like I was in a tunnel. Sorry. I was using Bluetooth audio. Can people hear me now on Facebook? If you can hear me clearly, just give me a comment or let me know how am I sounding. Yeah, just let me know if you can hear me now on Facebook. Yeah, Denzel, over to you.
Yeah, good question. Well, I've had this question asked several times now, and I feel several ways about this whole thing. I feel sad, a bit of anger towards what's happening, but at the same time, if the answer that shocks everyone when I say it is, I feel motivated, and I'm sure we're going to dive into it later on. But genuinely, that's how I feel. It's pain, it's sadness. It's cruel, it's brutal. What's currently happening in this world? It's especially, there's a certain type of racism that's hidden. Then there's a certain type of racism that's in your face. What we are witnessing, especially when we look at America, is something that's in your face. And to be honest with you, that's nothing I would wish on anyone. But it's motivated me to a certain degree.
Awesome. Yeah,
how are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling, to be honest, in the beginning, I was feeling quite helpless. It's
Right.
one thing when an individual is racist to you,
Right.
but when a whole system, right?
Right.
Like, for example, if you look at in the American context, if you look at Donald Trump sending a message saying that I'm deploying troops
Yeah.
to deal with the looting and they will not hesitate to shoot.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother level of fear. So for a while, honestly, I was feeling quite helpless and feeling like, there's no hope in ending this thing. We just need to come up with something different for ourselves as Black people. But over the conversations we've been having in private, which is why I wanted to bring it here, and conversations with other leaders, I'm feeling quite hopeful. Where there is a will, there is a way. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling. It's mixed emotions, to be honest. Helpless, hopeless, but now hopeful. So
Which is good, right?
Definitely.
Which is good, because you always have to see the other side of the tunnel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just be stuck in that tunnel. As much as it hurts, there's so much pain. Trust me, there is so much pain. But you have to see beyond that. So, which is good. Now, if you feel uplifted in some sense, if you feel like you can do something about it, then that's amazing.
Definitely. So moving on to our next question. We'll start with Kuda as well. Have you ever experienced racism here in the UK? And if so, just give us one example of a racist experience you've had.
That face is of a victim.
When you say give us one example, it's like, damn, man, one.
Yeah.
Because I think I've got so many examples.
A whole book.
I've got a whole book. I could write a book about.
No, but I'll say just give us one of your most memorable, or memorable is a wrong word. One of the biggest moments or challenges you've experienced in racism, because I don't want us to dwell on the problem too much. So just one example would do.
I completely agree with you. I think the one that stuck with me the most. Let me decide, because there's quite a few. let me decide. Give me a sec. Okay, yeah. I'm at a fuel station.
Yeah.
7:30, 8 p.m. Yeah, you've heard that one. Yeah. Fuel station, 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m. at night. I thought, let me refuel. Got to the fuel station. Because I drive trucks for a living. With trucks, we use fuel cards. And you have to present your fuel card first before you fuel. So I went to present my fuel card to the lady in the fuel station, and the lady says to me, "Unfortunately, I can't serve you." So I thought, "Eh, what do you mean you can't serve me? Have you run out of fuel or something?" And she says, "No, because I'm a female working a night shift. I'm scared for my life." And at this moment, you're scared for your life. How? What do you mean you're
How and why?
Yeah, what do you mean you're scared for your life? So I then quickly realized what this was. So I then said to the lady, "Well, is it because I'm black? Because if it was a white male, same age, who had come out, would you say the same thing?" And straight away, there's this phrase that they like using: "You're being aggressive, sir." The moment you say, "Is it because I'm black?" it's straight away, "You're being aggressive."
Yeah, they flip it.
No, I'm not being aggressive. I'm just asking, is it because I'm black? She says, "Well, you're being aggressive. I'm gonna call the police, etc., etc." So at this point, I'm like, "Well, yeah, by all means, go ahead and call the police." Because I haven't done anything. I've just came here to refuel and be on my way.
Yeah.
So she called the police. So I had a decision to make. Do I go or do I wait for the police? And I decided I will wait for the police, because if I go, then it looks like I've done something. Waited for the police. The police came, and what the police said to me is what really blew my mind.
Yeah.
Police came, so, "Oh, well, what seems to be the problem?" The lady explained, "Yeah, well, I'm a lady and I'm working a night shift. I don't really feel safe serving this gentleman here." So at this point, I'm like, "Well, there you go, officer. Now can I get my fuel?" And the police officer says, "Look, mate, yeah, I know, I understand, but I think the best thing I can advise you is just for you to go and find the next nearest fuel station where someone can serve you."
Yeah.
And that was it. That was that. Conversation done. Conversation over.
Wow.
Nothing.
Wow.
So yeah, that's just one of many stories. I mean, I've got plenty. But anyway, let's move on. Yeah.
That's good. Denzel.
Very quickly, just along those lines, and I find it funny. I want to say this in the most humble way possible, right? I've had so many incidents, even till this day, where you are walking, right? And someone has to change direction simply because there's a black guy approaching them, right? And it used to pain me so much, but now I look at it and I'm like, you're not okay in the head. Do you know why? Because not every black guy is a criminal, Not every black guy would do something wrong to you. I've sat with the mayor of Bedford. I've sat with high sheriffs. I've sat down with Lord Lieutenants. I've sat down with some big people. So don't just look at me like some criminal. I am somebody. Do you understand? So when you just see every black person, it doesn't mean there is something that they're going to do to you. Sometimes I just look at it and I think, you're actually not okay in the head.
Yeah.
And this is, sorry if I'm diving ahead, but this is why it's very important. And we always share this. If you come to our sessions at New Generation Leaders, we talk about being in positions of power. We talk about being people of influence in the community. All these things. I always tell every single person, if you get the opportunity, do your very best, give it your best, be the man in charge. And I'm not saying be the guy that's walking around trying to prove that you're in charge. No, just know that mentally, physically, you are powerful, and that's it. This is why these things don't bother me now, because I'm like, only if you knew who I am, in the most humble way, by the way. Only if you knew who I am, but that's the reality of things.
Wonderful. Let me share my experience. If you allow me, I'll share two, simply because they're very distinct. I want to share an institutional racism I faced, right, in very quick. So when I moved back to the UK in 2011, after my O-levels, I passed my Cambridge IGCSEs, right? And at that time, I don't know now, they were pretty much considered more difficult than GCSEs. And my dad applied for me to go to a grammar school for A-level. And one of the schools we applied to, despite me having 4 A stars and 4 Bs and 2 Cs, denied me. And they, like, on on no ground, they said, okay, we can't offer you a place before we offer our students first, because they didn't get their GCSE result. I had my Cambridge before the GCSE result, and it didn't make sense. But I then realized, because it was pretty much a very white-dominated school at the time, so that was an institutional racism I've experienced, being denied a place in a school when you have the grades, you know. And then the second experience I had is very recent. I traveled to South Africa with my family last year to Cape Town. And Cape Town, as you know, is white dominated. And we were staying in quite an affluent area because we were just renting a holiday house for a couple of weeks. And obviously we had white neighbors on both ends. And one time, and obviously they when black people show up in a neighborhood, you know that black people have turned up. So it was very, they knew that there's some black neighbors. And one time I booked an Uber to take me to go to the beach side of Cape Town, right? And the Uber came at night. It was around 7:30 p.m. And the guy came and parked waiting for me. Literally, he didn't wait 5 minutes. It was about 3 or 4 minutes where he was parked outside our house. And within those few minutes, our white neighbors, whilst I was making my way to the taxi, our white neighbors called the police, called the cops on us, simply because there was a black man in a car outside, not outside their gate, but outside the house we were staying in. And then we get on our journey. The police started following us, tailgating us. We saw them, but they didn't flash their siren or ring their alarm. So, you know, we just kept going because they didn't overtly stop us, especially stop us. They followed us for like, I'm not joking, for like a good 8 miles, just following us. And then eventually the Uber driver, he was black and Zimbabwean, he eventually decided just to pull over. We were now on the highway. When he pulled over, this was emotional. When he pulled over, there were 2 cops that came out, a white male and a white female. And when they came to our car, I was sitting in the front passenger seat. They pulled the window down, instructed me, the passenger, to put my hands on the deck, and instructed him to obviously take his hands off the wheel and show them his license and insurance. But just the fact that they asked me to put my hands on the deck, and they both had guns. So me, I'd always heard and watched on TV the Black American experience of police pulling people over, shooting them. But I was like, yo, anything can happen right now. There are 2 cops, 2 white cops with guns. I've got my hands. If anything, even if they're not going to shoot, I can't even defend myself. Yeah. And the fear that struck me, and then they started inspecting the car, etc., for like a good 20 minutes, just looking for nothing. They eventually let us go, but they said they got a call from people that there was some suspicious people in the area, blah, blah, blah. But just those few minutes of 2 cops having guns and me with my hands on the deck, it was one of the most embarrassing, shameful, dehumanizing moments I've ever experienced. So yeah, that's been my racist experience. But moving from the negative,
which there's quite a lot of, by the way.
Yeah, man, there's quite, yeah. I don't want to dwell on that because it's very emotional, man. It is what it is. But let's go here. Do you think this problem will ever change? And I'm talking the UK and the US and everywhere across the world. I know we have different contexts of racism, but starting with Denzel, do you think this can ever change? Or is it something we have to maneuver our way around and just adjust and succumb to?
Let me give you my very unpopular opinion.
Yep.
I would love to see the day this thing changes, right? Mm-hmm. But I look at it this way. We didn't start racism. Our generation didn't start racism, right? Probably the generation before us didn't start racism. There was a generation that started racism, right? And we've come to this point in age, day in life currently where there is still racism. So what's currently happening is the fact that people are growing into it, or maybe natured into it. It's like Christianity. Can you ever kill Christianity?
Nope.
Let's give that example. Why? Because it's passed down generations to generation. Yeah. So if you're going to kill Christianity, you need to you need to flood the whole place and start again. That's how I see it. What needs to change is not the people we are really accusing. Of course, they need to be, there is some sort of change that needs to happen. But I feel the real change needs to be within us. We need to change. Mentally, we need to change how we see things. We need to change how we do things. We need to change. And if I'm to dive into it quite a bit, it's as simple as this. At this present moment, Benjamin, for that question, the land that we're living in is not ours.
Yeah.
Right? The land that we're living in, realistically speaking, is not ours. Now, does it mean we can't succeed? No, we can succeed. But let's be sure that there are certain things that people of this land will always have power over us. So unless we change our minds, unless we change our approach, we will always be in situations where we are marching, we are protesting. I agree with protests. I've always gave this example. If Jay-Z went today and spoke to the president, right, he is likely to be heard. Whatever he's going to say, they're going to hear what he says. If I go and speak to the president right now, he won't give, he doesn't care what I'm saying. So now we are seeing a demographic, a community of Black people protesting, and that's the way they can be heard. And realistically speaking, that is the right way they can be heard. Now, what needs to happen then? The change that might come out of this, maybe there might be a little bit of lenience, but it doesn't mean that racism has ended.
Yeah.
Right. So let's not be fooled by a little bit of lenience. Just because now they say, okay, fine, we are going to employ a Black minister in the cabinet. Let's get someone back in the cabinet. Listen, they're going to be lenient, but the truth is racism really going to end? I think we need to channel ourselves and change our mentality. That's it.
Yeah. Before we jump on to Kuda, just to comment on what you said in a few minutes, I feel it will never change because even if laws change, right? I feel that the origin of racism is a heart issue, right? It's a heart issue. It's a deeply engraved hatred, and you can't legislate someone into liking you. How many times have laws been changed in the States and across the world, but racism still continues? So you can't legislate someone into liking you because even if you change the law, they can just find another way to dislike you and another way to to offend you.
I find it ridiculous how we have equalities ministers. We've got these. For what? So what we are saying is, listen, you guys are different, but we are going to get people that are just going to monitor that you get the very same things. No, we are humans. Let's all be humans. Let's all get the same right. I like what Dave said in his song Black. Black is a right. Let's not celebrate it. It's a right. It's everybody's right. Let's not applaud when, oh, he's been employed. Oh, the Black person has been promoted. No, it's a right. And if I
exactly,
then let it be that way. But I'll let Kuda speak. I don't want to take much off out of his mouth.
You're passionate, my guy. You're passionate. You're passionate.
Yeah.
I mean, it ain't gonna change. This thing's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. Someone sent me a clip today from I think the 1800s, or a long time ago. When they were dealing with racism issues, and the funny thing is, what he said is relevant even today. So it's not going to change. But again, I think, and we will talk about this in detail a bit further down. But I think what can change is us. What can change is our mentality, how we think, how we go about, how we go about our day-to-day life. That's within our control. That's as a race, as a people, as a generation, we are in control of how we think, how we react, what we do. What we're not in control of is what our white counterparts think and do. We're not in control of that. So, for example, racism. You're not born with racism. You are taught racism. Yeah. As a kid, it's funny. It's funny now. In my high school days, year 7 all the way up to 11, I would laugh if someone says to me, "Racism exists." I will tell them, "You must be joking. There's no such thing as racism." But that's because when I interacted with my white mates at school, they made me feel like we were the same. But that's because that's what they also believe. But then at home, you then get you're taught a different ideology, and then you know. But the good thing, there is hope, though. There is hope.
Yeah.
The hope is our generation, the generation that's growing up now with the white, black, Asian, whatever. I think we're more accepting than the older generation. I think the generation that's growing up now, they're more experimental. I mean, I think it's our generation that came up with that revolution of being a vegan, of being etc. No, no, no. The thing is, when you think about it, when you think about being a vegan, why people are becoming vegans? Because they say it's cruel how they kill the animals and stuff, right? And to someone you think, come on. But
Yeah.
that's what I mean by our generation. They're more
Yeah.
they're more, they think outside the box. So there is hope. But if it's going to change, it's not going to change in 50, 60, 70 years. It will take decades and centuries.
Yeah. You touched on a very important subject. You mentioned something to do with identity, and I think let's jump straight into that. How what role do we have to play? Because I think we have accepted that the enemy, the people who are impounding on us, are really not going to change their hearts. So how can we start that process towards achieving the world we want to achieve? What part do we have to play in changing our society and our opportunities and etc. as Black people, and I guess specifically as young people as well?
I will say two things and then let Denzel speak and then expand later on.
Yeah.
Number one, and for those that are watching, pay attention to these two things, because these two things are the foundations of if we're going to stand a chance in changing this whole thing. These two things are the foundation. Number one, destroy black on black racism. We need to dismantle that straight away before we can even start talking Black Lives Matter, before we start marching, before we start protesting. We
Yeah.
need to get rid of black on black racism.
Yeah.
Number two, we need to get rid of black on black hate. We are the most divided race amongst all races. That has these two things. Once we figure out these two things, the rest is a walk in the park. And I will expand later on as the conversation, expands.
Yeah. Denzel.
I like what you said there, Kuda. For me, it's very simple. Let us build and sustain our own economies. It's that simple. The moment we do that, we have power. We are self-reliant, self-efficient. We depend on nobody. The thing at the moment is, and I've said this to a few people, after these marches, right? After this protest, we are all going to work for the white man.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, you're going on a salary, you're going on a paycheck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because after that protest, you know that home is not okay.
Yeah.
You can't go back home. Yeah, you can't go back home. So home is not fine. What we need to be doing, especially now, us as young people, is invest back home, right? How does it start? What we are currently doing, the education that we're receiving, the experience that we're receiving, the knowledge, whatever you want to call it, let's take that and take it back home and build sustainable economies. Fine, you don't want to go back home. Here's the thing. If you don't want to go back to Africa, I know there's people that don't want to hear about Africa. It's absolutely fine. Within these places that we're at, let's build communities and let's sustain those communities, right? You look at Asians, they don't care about what anybody says to them. Do you know why? Because after their protests, they're going to work for themselves. They know how to beat the system.
There we go.
They know how to beat the system, and they're okay. So you can say whatever you want, right? They will show a little bit of anger. They'll show you how they feel, but they are content in what they are getting. They're content in the communities, the infrastructure that they've built in your land. I don't think this system was ever built for us to. Well, I don't want to say it wasn't built for us to succeed, but this system currently is not for us. I see people looting and everything, right? But this is not our land. Let's go back to Africa, Victoria Falls. There's a statue of David Livingstone at Mosoyotuna. Why are you not destroying that? Because that's on your land. right?
Yo.
Some type of way. That's on your land. Go and take that down, chuck it down most of your tunya. Don't come here and act like you now own this land, because no, you don't. And unless we are in power, not just in position, but in power of our own mind, in power of our own emotions, unfortunately, we will continue protesting. How many protests have you made prior to this?
Yeah.
Do you understand? So
Year
unless
in, year out.
change.
Yeah. Actually, just to jump onto what I like to call, so I feel we have to tackle racism and social inequality on multiple levels, right? There's no one method of doing it. I feel we need to incorporate the political system, even though it won't. I think our problem is we want one solution from one source, which is where we get it wrong. I don't think politics alone can solve our issues.
Okay.
I don't think economics alone can solve our issues. I don't think protesting alone can get anything done. But if we combine all those efforts, right, I think we can actually step in the right direction. But you mentioned something about building our own economy and systems. So here's my big idea, right? We have all acknowledged that we are suffering at the hands of systematic and institutional racism, right? I feel like the protests that are going on, I really support them and stuff, but this is just my genuine opinion. People can disagree if they want. I don't think protests are protests are very necessary. Please hear my heart. But I think they should be just the beginning of change, or they should trigger change, right? What's going to happen in a month's time when the protests are over? Do you get me? So I feel if we're facing systematic and institutional racism, marching will not dismantle a system. Marching will not break down institutions. We need to create our own counter systems and counter institutions, right? For example, I'm sure it's one thing we can learn from other Asian communities, and I know by saying Asian, I'm putting is a whole big bracket, but I hope people know what I mean with the best intention. They have been very intentional about building, whether it's from a religious angle, their own communities, their own schools, their own business networks. Some of them have their own banks. I feel we need to get to that level where we start thinking of big ideas and big economics and big politics. So protests are very necessary. Let's keep on protesting, but let's include other strategies. Let's have a collective strategy, not just because I feel protests more than anything right now, they are a way for us to vent and express our emotions and our anger, which is very necessary, because if someone never expresses their anger, they can explode and blow up. That's very necessary. But we need to think beyond the emotions, because I feel, so here's my theory, right? Emotion and passion is like fire, right? If now fire can do multiple things. Fire could warm you when you're cold. Fire could cook a meal for you, right? If it's right, fire, but fire can also burn. We've seen with the wildfires in Australia, fire can cause a whole lot of damage, right? Water can do a whole lot of stuff. It can give us energy. It can help us to drink and bath, etc. But if water is not contained, it could cause a flood and more damage. So I feel that's the same thing with our passion and our anger and our emotions, right? We need to channel that in the right direction. We need to contain that energy. It's like lightning. If lightning just hits and there's nothing to receive, there's no transformer or whatever, something to receive the energy, it will destroy. But if you contain that energy and channel it with an aim and a goal and a strategy, we can actually achieve more things. So our anger is very necessary, but we need to move beyond emotions, not ignore emotions.
I have a question for you guys. After this. No, sorry, go on. Sorry, after this.
So I just feel like we need to think of strategies. You know, I feel we need to be, and this is one thing the civil rights movement was very good at, the Martin Luther Kings, and they were very strategic. You see, the thing is, they didn't wait for an event or a murder to happen for them to march. They were marching before murders, before public murders were made known. So I know murders happen every day, killings happen on a daily basis, but we need to move our protests from protesting on an event to event basis. It's very necessary, but we need to keep the protest going 365 days a year, on and off the streets. We need to protest on the streets. We need to protest in the boardrooms. We need to protest in parliament. We need to protest, so it has to be a widespread collective effort. And just understanding where the power lies. And like, for example, I feel, and this is something we do in community organizing, it's something called power analysis. And Denzel might be aware of it. If you want to get something done, you need to know, okay, who has the power to change what I want to change? Because I feel sometimes our anger is directed towards the wrong person, and then we channel our anger at the wrong people. So we need to really identify where are the power centers beyond the politicians. There are many other people who play a part in the institutional and systematic racism, not just politicians. I feel like politicians, being a conspiracy theorist, politicians could be pretty much at the bottom of the food chain or could be puppets. There are other people in power, and we need to allocate and focus our energy in those systems.
Here's a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Just coming up from what you said, do you think the magnitude of these protests are just because of our current climate? Is it just because of lockdown? Is it just because people have nothing to do, hence the noise? Because a few weeks before George, there was someone else that passed away, right? That was killed.
Yeah.
If we look back, there was someone else, but it was never to this magnitude. So do we say lockdown did increase the noise on this? It's a conversation that we had at one of our sessions in New Generation. I'm very interested to hear what you guys think.
Could I go first?
Right. This is what I think, and I think at this point I'm going to become very unpopular. But these protests that we're doing currently, it's us just jumping on the bandwagon. I personally, and this is a personal, I personally feel like we don't have a foundation for these protests. Now, let me expand. What triggered the protest was George. That's what triggered the protest. And George lives in America, and we're here in the United Kingdom, right? Watch this. If the government then says, okay, we have heard you, come, let's talk. So what are you crying about? What are you going to say? Because here's the thing. Racism in this country is institutionalized. It's systematic. It's not in your face the way it is in America. In America, you can say you killed George Floyd, right? But here, I can't turn around and say, I didn't get the job that I was qualified to get, and then the white counterpart got it. Because you know what they'll turn around and say? Well, yeah, you did have the qualifications, but unfortunately you didn't interview well. And the other guy, yeah, I know you elect a bit on the qualifications, but he interviewed really well. What do you say to that?
So let me bring a bit of balance to that. Not arguing with you, but just offering a different view. I feel we have racism on all levels. We've got multiple victims who've been killed by police in the UK. It's very known, but it might be a bit more different because of maybe the size and magnitude of the two countries. So I feel, because I know there's some people who might completely disagree in the comments section, but we have to address both the institutional and the overt racism, which is going on. I don't know if you've seen videos of protests going on. Like, we've got some racists really turning up to the protests and blatantly being racist. So in the UK, people are killed by the police. It's just not filmed, I guess. Filming, social media has definitely changed the trajectory of protests. So I think let's not limit our understanding of racism to what we've seen only. I think let's appreciate, because, for example, someone could have had, even if it's just two people who've been shot and killed in the UK, it's still something to go mad about, right? Being a Christian, the Bible says that if a shepherd loses one sheep or one lamb out of 100, let's focus on that one. So I think for now, let's treat ourselves as just under the same oppression as the Americans. I know it's different on a geographical size, but yeah, I just wanted to jump in there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Just wanted to know what you guys think. But just coming back to what we're saying, my last comment on this, the solution. To everyone that's hearing this, all young people, we have what it takes, right?
Yeah.
We have absolutely what it takes. It's up to us. Let's channel our mind in the right place. Let's focus on the things that we can actually achieve, and let's get them done. Is this thing going to end? I don't think so. I don't think
Never.
the system was designed
Yeah.
for us, but we have to find a way to come out of it. A lot of white people, and I must say this, I'm not happy. You spoke about a white neighborhood. Do you know if a black man buys a property in a white neighborhood,
Yeah.
it's something else. It's news.
Yeah.
We need to make that normal. We need to normalize those things.
I was saying, so back to my point about the systems and institutions, right? Imagine, I could be unrealistic, but imagine if we're a collective of black billionaires, right? If the Tyler Perrys and whatever, I'm just mentioning because it's one billionaire I know, and Oprah, etc., those are celebrities. But imagine if all the non-famous billionaires, etc., came together and said, okay, guys, here's the thing. The system never loved us, and even if it will never love us. Imagine if billionaires came together, we pulled, let's say, 1 billion to start a credit facility for black people to start getting loans. Because, loans is a big issue, both here in the UK and the States, for black people to access good loans and etc. Imagine if we start a credit union or credit facility from a 1 billion fund, right, for people to start owning properties or to get loans to start businesses. And obviously we manage it in a good way, not just on the merit of the color of the skin, but we make sure that we give people who can manage it, right? Put a fund for a credit facility, fund black-owned banks that have a specific agenda to empower black-owned businesses. Imagine what we could do. Imagine if we had a because I know we've got different charities and doing stuff, but we need to think beyond little organizations and start thinking on a macro scale. Imagine if we had a scheme just for black-owned tech businesses, because right now the economy is moving towards tech and digital industry, right? Imagine if we had a 3 billion fund for tech startups in the black community that empower black young people in black schools. I don't know. I'm just thinking big ideas. Obviously, there's an individual level where we need to know our identity. We need to advocate and march and etc. That's on an individual level, what you can do as an individual. But I'm thinking in a systematic, collective, big idea. Imagine how the world, because I think money is a big part of power. Money is power in politics as well. Then we could have more bargaining power. I feel like that's what the Asian community has done well. They can be heard because if you look at the middle class, they literally hold the middle class of this country. They run the GPs. They run the banks. So if we start, I don't know, I'm babbling, but
so this is what I think, right? this is my this whole thing for me. This is my punchline.
Right.
I think we have the solution, like Denzel has said. Now, Benji, I know you said, imagine if we had billionaires come up and say, look, we're going to set up a fund. Now, bro, you're my bro, but unfortunately, society at the moment, I have not seen it working like that. The black billionaires are protecting theirs, bro. They're thinking, well, listen, because we all come from a poor background. So the day I get 50 grand, I'm not really thinking about Denzel or Benjamin. I'm thinking, how the hell can I generate another 50,000? You know what I mean? So this is what I think we should do. I think, like we're all agreeing, we need to make ourselves important in the society and in the community. Now, I'm going to try and give some really, really practical steps of how we can do that.
But what do you mean by being important? Are we talking about position? What makes one important?
Right, there we go. Good question. Several things make one important. Get yourself educated to a point where they're forced to recognize you, whether they like it or not. So we're not talking get yourself educated to BSc level, because everybody has a BSc. Masters, yeah, you could try and get masters, but we're talking PhDs. We're talking educate yourself, saturate yourself with information. That's
Get
one
into
way.
positions of power.
Yeah, that's one way.
Start wealthy businesses.
Yeah, the second.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second.
I have a different opinion. Okay, sorry. I'll let you finish.
The second thing that you could do, right? I'm gonna use myself and Pinnacle Sound Studios. So for a lot of people, they think I set up Pinnacle Sound Studios so that I can become rich and make money. But this is only something that me and my wife know, and a few other people in my inner circle I've shared with. But Pinnacle Sound Studios was not set up to make money. Yes, I would love to generate some sort of income from it because I'm going to spend a lot of my time there. But do you know what Pinnacle Sound Studios was set up for? Pinnacle Sound Studios was set up to work with young black males who have a criminal record. It was set up to work with homeless people. But I had to think, what am I good at? I'm good at music, right? So I had to incorporate that. So we've set it up, and eventually we're gonna set up a program where we start working with young black males who have criminal records, who are not accepted in the community, and empower them through arts. And then we're gonna open a breakfast club that we're gonna fund ourselves for homeless people. And we shout it out all over Derby and say every morning from 7 a.m. until 10 a.m. our gaff is open for anyone who is homeless who needs breakfast.
Yeah.
Now watch this. I will then approach the council after 3 years of doing that on my own and say, look, I have been doing this. And they will know before I even approach them. If you do something significant enough in the community, they will know about it. I know a guy here in Derby who started something like that. And the council approached him and said, look, we have the building that you can use. We've heard you've been doing this.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Yeah.
Denzel, before you jump in, I've got a question for you. I've turned over to the Facebook question. Sorry, we can't see the Facebook questions here. Sorry for ignoring your Facebook people. Faith asks, in your point, just address this. She said, but how do you get into positions of power when no one is giving you the chance?
Okay.
So address that.
Create that position of power yourself. No one is going to give you a managerial position because you're black. Even if you've got the master's degree or even if you're qualified, no one is going to do that for you. So you have to create it. But the thing is, back to what I said, we have to eradicate black on black racism, black on black hate. You can't create that position on yourself. No man is an island. This is when was it Faith? Faith comes to me and says, look, I'm trying to establish this and I'm trying to set this up. And because I don't see Faith as a competitor, I don't hate Faith. I want to see Faith's growth. I'm like, okay, what can I do? Right? Oh, I know Denzel knows the thing about that. You know what? Let me connect you with Denzel. And before you know it, it makes it easier for Faith to set something up like that. And then before you know it, she's in a position of power because we have pulled our resources together. But the problem right now is Faith
pulling resources together. Say that again. Pulling resources together.
Pull resources together. But right now the problem is Denzel comes up to me and says, look, I want to set up the same thing that you've set up in Derby, right? And you know what I say to Denzel? Bro, I don't want to lie to you, man. Nah, I don't think that's something that you want to go into because I feel like Denzel's not going to be a competitor. But no, Denzel's not a competitor. The cake is big enough for everyone to eat, man.
Denzel.
I genuinely, I agree. I agree. First of all, let me address this. I don't think when we are talking power, we are not talking position. We are talking about you understanding your value after having demonstrated what you're worth, right? I think, and I was watching an interview by Charlemagne the God and TD Jakes. TD Jakes. And they said something very profound. We as black people have suffered for a very long time, such that when we get money, we want to show that we have made it, right? Yeah. That's the first thing we want to do. I'm going to go and buy a nice chain. I'm going to buy a Mercedes. I'm going to buy a Rolls Royce. Why? Because I want to show people that I have made it.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to say this. Could I mention about getting qualifications, I agree to a certain degree, but I think let us stop living life to prove a point. let us stop trying to get these qualifications to show people that I am worth that. Because education, sorry, I'm going to offend a lot of people. Education is not the most important thing in your life.
I agree.
Your dream, your vision is the most important thing in your life.
In some cases, could be overrated in a certain context.
But listen to this: your vision, your dream is the most important thing. You use education to elevate you to attain your vision, to attain your dreams, what you want to achieve. But it's not the most important thing. So what am I saying? We need to look at ourselves, and think about the things that we want to achieve in life. For me, for the next generation, for my community, not because I want to prove a point, not because I want to show you that I've made it, but I want to do it because I have fulfilled something in my life. I have done something. So the person that's us, Faith, how do I get in positions of power? Listen, do what you love and do it to your best of your ability. Fame, power, money will come. But when you do something, listen, if you do it to the best of your ability, I am telling you, you will not regret. You will benefit your whole community without even realizing it, because you're doing it out of passion, not out of wanting to prove a point.
I think also another thing we need to adopt is moving away from a mentality of, and now I guess I'm speaking to parents as well, not to raise our kids to just aspire to get a good degree, a good job, and that's it. Like, do you get what I mean? I feel we need to start thinking big, aspiring to own things. So I know it's the system is hard, but let's begin. Let's change what we can. That's what I'm saying. So we might not have all the power to change the system, but one thing we can change is our mentality. One thing we can change is our attitude. One thing we can change is the way we relate and communicate with each other. Like you said, we need to have more love amongst ourselves as Black people. But I think our view of possibilities is very important. We need to start teaching financial literacy. We need to start teaching kids that, you can own property at 21. You don't have to wait till you're 40 to get your first mortgage. You need to start breaking some of these cycles. And it's going to take a lot of educating to do. And I don't want to blame our parents' generation, because they had a lot of challenges to deal with. And obviously that's why they might not have gotten as far as we thought they could, because they had their own limitations. So I'm not ignoring, but I'm just saying, for our generation now, we need to be very, very intentional about the messages we're getting across to the younger generations about the way we view possibilities. So like I said, where you can rise up the ranks of the ladder, definitely work your way up. But then there are definitely, and the corporate world is really one of the most oppressive systems. So let's try to create our own corporations. I know we can't do it overnight, but let's start the trend. Let's start the pattern. And I know that we can't build multi-billionaire, multinational corporations right now, overnight, in a year. But let's start the process. Let's start the research. Let's start the education. Education is not a degree. Education is not GCSE. Education is not A-level. That's a formal qualification, but education is a daily process, man. Understand how the world works.
Let me give a good example. At the moment, we are streaming on the Southern African Times. Right? That's a Black-owned newspaper. Right? If you look at that newspaper, I'm telling you, you wouldn't think it's owned by a Black man. Do you know why? Because we're not used to that quality.
Right.
That quality, we know this.
Can I jump?
White man
jump in there? Can I jump in there? That's so to just to what you've just said there, Denzel. So at the moment we're looking at this from one perspective. Can I just say something? Black people, we're the biggest consumers. When it comes to buying. Right. Now, another way we could fight this is, let's take our money and circulate it around Black businesses only. That will definitely make a dent in the oppressor's pocket. And when you start messing about with people's money, they are forced to change.
Revenge.
But let me then say something very, very, very important to this, because I myself I've started doing this. Me and my wife were trying to buy a cake somewhere, and then she found a cake from a white business for £85. And I told her, no, we're not buying that cake from her because I know a lady from our church who bakes cake. I said, no, if I have to drive to Luton to go and buy cake from that lady, then I'll do that. But here's the thing: we as
Yeah.
black people also, we have to up our standards. The biggest
Mhm.
problem that we have at the moment is I think as black people we do each other over, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you come to me for a service and I offer a mediocre service, which
Mm,
makes it very, very difficult then for you to come back to me.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're going to do that, I really encourage on both, I really encourage people now. Let's stop buying
So,
it.
so guys,
Stop.
I've got questions from Facebook. Sorry, let me see. People are saying I'm ignoring the questions. Okay. What are the questions? I'm seeing more comments than questions on Facebook. Okay, I see Simba Kevin Manager is posting about the black-owned economy. Yeah, check them out. Uh, okay, guys, please type your questions again. I can't see questions here. I'm
whilst
seeing
you're
comments
looking
more
for
than questions.
questions,
Yeah,
it's the Southern African Times.
guys,
Check
check out the Southern
it
African Times.
out.
It's
Check it out.
yeah,
I tell you, I go in there every single day. The content is amazing, and I'm just proud. The CEO just happens to be my brother. I'm not being biased because if you do
let's
check,
give him a shout out. Let's give him a shout
if
out.
you
All
do
right.
check the page, it's crazy the content that's there,
Mhm.
the amount of quality, and I am proud, man. That's owned by a black man who is
Yeah.
thriving. Well, this guy is doing amazing in his
Mhm.
field.
Yeah. Also, going back to my previous points about ideas, right? Think about it. For us, owning a property and having a mortgage is a big achievement. But I think we spoke about this earlier today. Like, can we then upgrade our? So I'm all about possibilities, right? Let's upgrade our possibilities from just aspiring to own buildings and residential property. Can we encourage our young people to start owning land? Guys, I feel like owning land in the UK it's hard, but when you start owning land, I feel like it's gonna get us ahead of the curve, by much distance. What do you guys have to say about owning land in
Do,
this
do you
country?
know? Do you know why we'll never own land?
Hmm.
Because no one will ever know that's our land.
Yeah.
I would rather buy a building that you can see.
Hmm.
I will put my name on it, and you will know that it's owned by me.
Yeah.
That mentality is wrong. Let's stop trying to prove a point. Oh, I own that building because it's
Mm.
me. The most powerful people, you will never hear about them. You hardly hear about them.
Mm.
We want to be the guys to be written about. We want to be the guys to be the headlines. Hey, there are people that are ridiculously wealthy, own
Mm.
several buildings that
Mm.
an average person is renting from, but you will
Yeah.
never know who your landlord is. Do you know
Mm,
why?
mm.
Yeah.
Because they're content. They are content with what they're doing. So it's rare for a black man to then go and buy land because, well, no one will ever know that's my land.
Yeah. So let me add a guest. His name is Nick Dube, Pastor Nick Dube. He is an author of a book called No One Understands Me. He is very passionate about the young people. Pastor Nick, welcome. I know you have to jump off. Sorry, a lot. Um, how are you doing, sir?
Hi guys.
Great, thanks.
My
Please
good
just
sir.
your ideas and thoughts just for a few minutes around leadership, how we can be leaders, maybe not only in organizations and institutions, but on any level, how we can upgrade our level of leadership in achieving the change we want in this situation. Just give us your thoughts.
Um, I had a question actually, and then maybe let me just say one simple statement. Hi Denzel, hi Kuda, Benji, and everyone watching.
My good sir.
Um,
Good to see you.
yeah, so awesome. You guys are amazing. I mean, I wish we can have this every day. Leadership is influence, full stop. So how do we begin to influence where we are? How do we begin to influence with what you have? And so there was a question from Faith about, climbing up the ladder. And sometimes one of the dangerous mentalities is waiting for a position to begin to influence.
Right.
If you wait for a position to begin to influence you, the system might make you wait forever. So how do you begin to influence with what you have? How do you begin to influence where you are? And I think it goes back to culture, black people, and all these things. How do we celebrate what you have?
Mm.
How do we make young people and all of us cherish gifts, skills, talents, ideas, and have a culture that promotes those things? Not a culture that's, just
Mm.
makes you abandon things and
Mm.
hopefully one day become a good accountant or good something or good whatever, which is what we inherited from our parents. But like you said, you guys are the generation to redefine power, success, influence, and what it means. It's no longer about just aiming for a degree. In as much as education is important, and we'll all use it as a foundation. But how do we begin to? So, for instance, like Kura, what are your areas of influence? What is the family, the church, the brothers, us brothers around you? What are we doing as a community around you to help you develop you? If I have channels, if I have links of influence, what am I doing to you, Denzel, to begin to take your gifts, your talents, your influence and put it to the top and link you with another person and link you with another person? We are amazing, we are powerful, but we are not known.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we die with this stuff. We
What
are amazing stuff.
what you've just explained there is eradicating black on black hate and black on black racism. That's what you've just explained there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to leadership, but maybe before I go, sorry to divert you for 2 seconds. I'm watching as a parent, guys, and when you started, I think one of the initial questions you said you have dealt with this and you have internalized it. I wanted to ask as a parent, or for parents that are watching, looking at all this racism and worried about their black boys. At what point and what do you begin to say to a young black boy so that we don't get to the point where the black boys are statistics in the police or in crime or in prison? Because these things, boys are already being nurtured at primary school for drugs and for gangs. And so before we even talk leadership and power and influence and success, a black boy already has been labeled. He already has a record. And so before we even want to deal with those opportunities, almost 50% of the chances have already been eradicated because of the police record and criminal record and being labeled. So to a parent watching, what do you begin to say to a child at primary school, to a child living in a vulnerable community where there's drugs and gangs? Because if as a community we don't raise them, a drug dealer will do the work for us.
Yes.
Yep.
So I think the biggest mistake that happened was we did not have these conversations with our parents when we were young. And let me just explain something. From when you're in junior school up until maybe the final year of college, they're very, very good at masking that racism. They're very, very good at making it seem like we are all at the same level. But the truth of the matter is we're not. Now it then takes someone to someone who's gone through it and speak to a young black male and say, I know they make you feel like you are part of them. I know they make it seem like you are on an even ground. But the truth of the matter is you are not. Now, don't change the way you act around them. Don't act awkward around them. Don't act weird around them. But at the back of your mind, when you interact with them, just always remember you have to be 10 times as good as they are. So, for as long as you remember that, I think it's a good starting point. Because for me, I will use myself. I made a lot of mistakes where they made me feel like I was really part of them. They made me feel like we were all on the same level. But then when you then get to a certain point where they start pruning the tree or they start pruning the leaves on the tree, you are left out. And you think, well, how have I been left out? I got better grades than Paul. I got better grades than Mark. So how have I been left out? And it hits you unaware because all along they've made it seem like um, you're on the same level playing field. So where it came to me working hard, I didn't work as hard as I should have because I assumed based on what I saw, I assumed we were on the same level. So I think the first starting point is letting our kids know that don't be fooled. It might seem like you're on the same playing level field, but you are not. However, don't show it to them that I know we're not on the same playing level field. So whatever you do in school, in when you excel and everything else, just make sure you're 10 steps ahead of them. Yeah, chill with them, hang out with them, but don't do what they do. I'll give an example. When I was in high school, there were my friends. There were two black guys and three white guys. They went and they stole a teacher's laptop. Two black guys were expelled for good. They didn't come back. The three white guys, they were given a slap on the wrist. They didn't come to school for 2 weeks, and they came back. But it seemed as though we're on the same level, but we're not. So I think that's
Can I just add to that?
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I think what's also very important, or what he's really saying, is identity. When you install and echo one's identity in understanding, knowing with full knowledge and wisdom who they really are, they should not allow certain things to move them. I say this, I know who I am. Whatever environment I am in, I am confident about who I am. Simply because I've come to understand who I am. I am what I carry within me. And that's the thing. When you change your mind, try and install positive things in one's mind. Once your mind is transformed, you will be so renewed. The Bible is true. Every book that we read in this day and age, whatever finance, business, whatever book it is, I certainly believe it comes from the Bible. I don't care what anybody says, but it comes from the Bible. So what I'm really trying to say is, when your mind is renewed, is transformed, when you understand who you are, there are things that don't phase you. I spoke about walking and someone might divert because they see a black man coming. Do you know why that doesn't move me? I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know who I am. That's why I say to you, I look at them funny and think only if you guys knew who I am. Because within me, I am content. I'm content of what I'm doing, content of who I am. I understand that I can be who you think I cannot be.
Pastor Nick, before you sorry to wrap up. I was gonna say, Pastor Nick, before you go, okay, Jenzo can wrap up, but after he wraps up, could you just say I want you to speak to a young black person who feels discouraged, who feels overwhelmed, who feels outnumbered by the system. How can a young black person continue to maneuver through life and achieve their dreams in spite of the racism that's going on? But Jenzo, finish and then you can address that.
Yeah, thank you. So your mind, once your mind changes, because there are black people that are succeeding in this cruel world, and you need to think to yourself, why is that? They're black. We're in the same economy, we're in the same environment. Maybe what's different might be experience or whatever it may be, but there are black people that are succeeding. So if they can do it, I can do it. I know it sounds cliche and sounds like, oh, that's a good thing to say, but it is true. Once you change your way of thought, it will transform you.
Pastor Nick?
Maybe let me just write on what Denzel just said. If we say there are black people that are succeeding, you know what's going to help a young person listening right now? If they don't want to, if we don't want them to be discouraged, or feel hopeless, let's see you guys out there. Let's have the successful black people in our community become more visible, either by us promoting one another, by us, putting it out there. Because I think sometimes we succeed privately, if there's such a thing. And as a result, if I'm as a young person, I'm going through a lot, and I can't see a mentor or a role model. And I end up feeling like I'm alone. All these challenges, I better just join a gang or get into crime. That's what every black young man does. But if I can see alternative to say you don't have to be in drugs or in crime, there is Kuda doing his thing. There is Denzel doing his thing. There is Benji influencing in politics and business, in taking over land. You see that building in London is owned, by Kuda, by whatever. So I think what we need to do is, even our history is not taught in school.
Spot on.
Even from an early age, the successes of a black man are not highlighted.
Spot on.
We need to, you generation, your successes, don't let them be hidden in the next 20, 30 years. So that the kids that are growing up can grow up. We don't have to wait 400 years to see Obama, to see that it's possible to become a president. We don't have to wait all that time. We should be seeing Obamas in every sector so that it begins to change. What you're talking about, Denzel, the mindset. It's difficult to change a mindset if I'm not seeing anything, because the mindset is also is a product of what you see. If I lock you in a room with nothing, you can pump yourself up, but your mindset is influenced by what you see. And so we need to see the success of the black man. Going back to a question that was made by Faith and tying it all together, some of you that are directors in the NHS that God has blessed with whatever, please be visible and support your brothers and sisters that are rising through the ranks of Band 5 or lower structures. This is how you become a director in the organization. This is how you become this. Let's get rid of the black culture that we want to succeed on our own. And then just drive down the road and saw the poor neighbors next door. Come on, bring those boys on board.
No, we have
bring
to,
the other
man.
sister on
we
board.
have
And
to
say,
bring
look,
everybody in. Yeah, we have to bring everybody in.
we have to. So for a young man, I think they have to know the story of a black man is not negative. We are living in times of media and news that can portray the things that they want. There is a lot of success and a lot of pride and a lot of achievement in the story of a black man.
That's true.
You don't have to give up. You don't have to jump into the stereotype, oh, that's what black boys do. No, I think that's one of the things to refuse. That no, I mean, I'm not just some black boy. I'm a human being. I'm a young man on purpose and on fire. I've got dreams. I've got ideas, and they are not limited to or just defined by the color of my skin. And so so we need to change that thinking, and for them to know there is hope. And I think for me, what's boiling in me is, as we move into the next 20, 30 years, if we don't want to see this protest for the sake of protest, let's make the successful black men more visible. Let's lift one another. Just like you guys just did, with the Southern African Times. There's many success stories. Let's not have PhDs. My pastor used to say PhD stands for pull him down. Let's not be good in having PhDs, in being good at pulling each other down. And we show up at parties with the latest Benz and car, and one like, how is he doing it? It's always a secret. But let's build one another. And I don't know, I mean, before I go, I don't know, how do you guys mentor the younger generation to yours? And what role does the community, whether it's churches or mentors or the successful black guys, how do we begin to mentor all this to make it a reality?
I think building networks and just creating platforms of exposure for each other. So you know how you've got exhibitions and these big events or these big networks. One brilliant one I know that's existing is called the Black Young Professionals, the BYP network on LinkedIn. Check them out. They profile Black-owned businesses, Black-owned professions. They do recruitment. It's a good network. EmergeNow, we do our own thing to really promote young people. I know other institutions, Kuda does this thing. Denzel might need to go because the laptop doesn't have battery. But I think platforms is necessary. So it goes back to my idea about systems, right, and institutions. So if a lot of negativity about Black people is portrayed through mainstream media like CNN and ETC or Fox News, I don't know which one is whichever. Imagine if we create our own media platforms of that same size and funded to that same magnitude that actually portray, because I know we've got BET, Black Entertainment TV, but let's move even more complex and intellectual media that really profiles Black people. So I think platforms, either through media or social media, or just platforms, are very necessary. Kuda, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. And also I think a lot of it is vulnerability as well. If you tell your story, I think your own personal story plays an important part. Because I think sometimes, you come and you mentor with just what's on the surface. And a lot of young black boys cannot relate with what's on the surface.
Yeah.
They relate with I held a knife too. They relate with I also walked that road. I knew people who dealt drugs, etc. They relate with that. So
Yeah.
the one thing I think that the older generation failed to do was be vulnerable and transparent with the younger generation, which I think the young black boys they want that. Because the moment you come to them with, I've never really faced that, but you shouldn't do it, they disengage straight away
Yeah.
because they're like, well, you don't live in my world, man, so you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah. Sorry, Pastor Nick has to go, and I think we've come to the end. Thank you very much, Pastor Nick, for joining us. Feel free to jump off, but thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
guys. Yeah.
It's been
Thank you.
wonderful. Yeah. Denzel's laptop, I think, switched off.
Yeah.
We're reaching the end. Any closing thoughts on the conversation and steps moving forward? Whilst you're speaking, I'll just go through some of the comments and see if we can answer any of them. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think as black people, my message is just one message. As black people, I think if we've ever stood united, I think this is the time now, more than ever. Um, you don't hear of the Asian community crying so much foul about racism. Yes, they do face it, but they don't cry so much foul about it the way we do, because they're united, and the hands of the oppressor knows that these people are united. They are untouchable, so we can't mess with them as much as we would want to. On the contrary, we as a race, man, they know, because there's a lot of black on black killing, there's a lot of black on black fighting, and they know that, and they use that to their advantage, which is why they get away with half the things that they get away with. I mean, on Facebook lately, I've seen so many comments about, oh, why are you all black people complaining about, another black person being murdered by white cop, when you black people kill each other more than anybody else. We give them the ammo. So then it makes it difficult for us, to then say no, but our lives matter, because we're kind of portraying a different image. So I feel like unity now more than ever is
Yeah.
so important. Where starting businesses are concerned, where starting movements are concerned, let me eradicate something in your minds, guys. There is no such thing as competition. Yes, competition is there, but amongst us, there is no such thing. Why is it? Why is it? I grew up in Luton. For those that know Luton, and there's a place called Berry Park. It's got maybe a 3 to 4 mile strip full of chicken and chip shops, full of corner shops, and all of them owned by Asians. And they're sustaining their businesses, but they're selling one product in the very same place. And how is it that they're sustaining that? Imagine if they say, well, your competition, so I'm gonna do whatever I can to pull you down, and I'm gonna they wouldn't be where they are today. So I think we need to shift our mindset, and we need to stick together. We need to empower each other. Another thing that's notorious amongst black people: we don't share information. We don't
Preach.
share information whatsoever. Um, for argument's sake, if there's some privileged information that I know that not a lot of people know about, if someone approaches me, you always get, yeah, man, just go on Google and type it up, and
Google.
yeah, just Google it, man.
Yeah.
And it's the reason why we are in this very place that we're in. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said before, we need to love ourselves as individuals. First of all, be very confident and love who we are, and we need to love each other as a people, and pull each other up, not pull each other down. Let's propel each other. I'm going through the comments. I couldn't find very specific questions. It's more more of comments than questions. But I know one common thing that's come up in the comment section is around mindset. So a lot of people have mentioned the importance of mindset, and I think we touched it from the very onset.
I think Emmanuel Mzangaza had a question earlier on that I did try to reply, but I didn't reply fully.
I tried to look for. I can't see it because I know he said we ignored it, but I actually can't see the question.
He was talking about the root causes. We haven't addressed the root cause.
Yeah, so I think we all know the root causes. If you've studied history, you know the root cause. So besides colonialism and slavery, etc., the root cause is an attitude of the heart. Certain people of a certain ethnicity and skin color in certain positions of power do not like black people. That's pretty much what racism is. I don't think the root cause of racism is rocket science. People know why racism is there and who is perpetuating racism. It comes from a place of hate, from people who feel they are superior than black people simply because of the color of their skin, etc. So I don't want to dwell too much on the cause of racism. Everyone knows the cause of racism, and I wanted us to touch on things that we can at least control, or things that we have the power to influence in moving forward. So there's certain things that are beyond our control as individuals. In order for us to address them, we have to address them as communities. But I wanted this discussion to really highlight what can I do as an individual to change my world? What can we do as community groups to change our world moving forward? Like I said, we can't eradicate racism in a year or in a moment. It's going to take multiple efforts and collective efforts. So I hope, Emmanuel, you answered there. But I think the root cause of racism is very obvious. It comes from a place of hate. But we need to tell stories, like people are saying in the comments. The stories we tell are important. So, like Pastor Nick said, let's profile people who are successful. Let's put billboards up of black-owned businesses. Let's promote each other. Someone has a question. How can we encourage cohesion? By encouraging cohesion. I think
promote.
The question in itself is the question answers itself. We need to really be united first in our families. We find a lot of families are kind of divided. Some people can't even promote their own cousin's business. So charity begins at home. Let's love ourselves. Let's promote ourselves in our small family groups. From family, I know we've got other community groups like churches, associations, etc. Let's start promoting our businesses there. And like other people said, quality. If you're a black person in business, let's also ensure that we offer quality that is acceptable and very competent. We can't just buy from you on the basis of the color of your skin, but your products are poor quality. It then puts a bad rep on yourself as an individual and us as a community. But how can we encourage cohesion? By encouraging cohesion. It simply is what it is. It's a chain reaction.
I think, with social media, people who are in business and whatever else, they will post their business online. And if I see that somebody's posted their business online, I should be quick to repost that. Benjamin should be quick to repost that because it's a black-owned business. But how many times do we scroll by and we see a black-owned business? I'm like, oh yeah.
And how many times do we buy? So sharing and promoting is one thing, but let's actually buy from black-owned businesses. Those are two different things.
But for me, my last remarks as well. I think I personally would have done some injustice if I don't bring my Christian beliefs into this. What we also have to remember is some of these things are spiritual warfares as well. As much as we're dealing with the society and everything else, sometimes the devil uses the people that are in front of us. So as much as we're doing all these things as well, I think prayer as well is important. Just for God to guide you, man, and lead you. Sometimes God knows your heart, but I think sometimes you have to vocalize it with God, and then sometimes events happen that you can't even understand how they've happened to aid you into achieving what you want to achieve to be in a better place. Because I think some of it is spiritual warfare. So just
definitely. And because the topic of discussion today, it's a very emotional topic. It's a very complicated topic. And I know we didn't we can't always agree with everyone in the comments section, but I would encourage, and I'm going to do this myself, try to look at the narrative of other people who you don't agree with. Try to understand. Let's learn to have different points of view, but still understand each other. If that makes sense. Let's not be ignorant and one-minded. I've seen there are lots of people who've been sharing comments that I personally disagree with, and vice versa. But I'm really willing after this to reflect and go through those comments and see, because if your ideas and your beliefs cannot stand up to scrutiny, then there is a problem. So I think let's be open-minded. Let's keep these conversations going on in our houses, in our churches, in our youth groups, and let's start thinking big. Like, I think one of the main themes of tonight is changing your mindset, changing the way you view possibilities, knowing your potential. Just you as an individual, it makes a whole lot of difference, because someone could chain you out there, but if someone cannot chain you or limit you in your heart and your mind, then your possibilities are unlimited. So with those words, thank you, everybody. And once again, thank you to the Southern African Times for really promoting this live and for partnering with us. And I know we've got more stuff in store. So thank you very much to Farai and Southern African Times. Thank you to EmergeNow, because Benjamin is not EmergeNow. I have a team that will work with him. Kudai, I know you're part of that. Thank you, Kudai, as an individual, and also for your brand that you represent. And Denzel in absentia, he lost power. But guys, I don't know, I think we should have these conversations again, because I would really want to engage in some of the thoughts and ideas that we don't agree with, or some of them that I couldn't see, because most of them are comments, not necessarily questions. But I really want to engage more ideas and just hear what people think. So for those whose comments we didn't address, my apologies. I couldn't really multitask looking at comments, because the Facebook comments were not appearing here on our stream. So I had to use two gadgets. But thank you very much for engaging nonetheless and hanging out with us for 1.5 hours. You guys have been awesome. Thank you, guys. Love, and let's meet again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. How do I stop this?